All right, welcome to another episode here. Karl, thank you so much for making the time to come in, mate. Like, I usually have a really good introduction. It's all like all polished and shit. But like, man, it's just so great that you decided to come and spend some time with us. I've loved seeing your journey from being an operating CISO to a field CISO, and now you've got your own venture fund going on. We got 1,000 questions we're gonna ask, but let's just start with like, why the jump into the VC side?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Connor. Stu, it's good to see you again. This jump for me and really has been a kind of a 10-year journey. I think from being a CISO at a bank and becoming kind of an early adopter of some companies like Pentair is a good example, and getting a kind of a ringside seat to watching companies go from the garage to a $1 billion company, and I was kind of. I knew that was a journey that I wanted to be a part of. And so each year I kind of got closer to that point where I joined an advisory board, eventually joining a vendor, and myself starting to angel invest. And then a month ago, just making the final change, which is to put on the hat of the venture investor, start my own firm, raise a fund. But it was a 10-year slide. There was no moment in time really where this was exactly decided, but there was one moment in time. I'll tell that story in a minute. But
okay, but I was gonna say over that 10 years, you've also done something which I find is fascinatingly unique and unique to you. You have built yourself a reputation of being one of the nicest people in cybersecurity. Nobody has an ill word to say about you. Everybody loves Karl.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Connor. That's I think part of me living in Minnesota and just being like Minnesota nice is maybe that just comes off that way. And I think this is true with especially with the teams in Israel that I've invested in and worked for. I'm a guy with it sounds like a dumb Minnesota accent. I think it's disarming, and so I think I lucked out from that sense that that's just I'm just wired that way to be maybe Minnesota nice. So.
Yeah, and I think people always say you're very generous with your time. We just talked about it. You sleep for 5 hours, and then you're on the road 19, and you make time for people. So I think it's a great full circle moment for you as someone who's known you for a number of years to see it, and that foundational work that you've done, whether it was on purpose or not. I think it's probably going to play out the right way. So, and I also think like what exciting time to launch a VC. I think and I'm super interested as we dive into this conversation to learn like, how are you assessing these companies? Because these AI companies, there's a different one every 5 minutes. I'd love to get your thoughts on how excited you are about the timing of the launch, given the noise and the money in the market right now.
Well, I think not only is it this explosion of investment in AI, it's also this moment in time, which hasn't really happened before, where the individual investor, from Brinky Sethi to John Brennan to Amanda Robson, Ephraim Yarmak, myself, I think of those as people that I've followed in the very recent past to this trend of having a single investor having a great deal of contribution to a company. That's the capital, but also the horsepower to put behind it. It's no longer the domain only of the Sandhill mega firm. This is a place and time where an individual investor can make a great contribution. And for me, a little bit low and off the radar compared to Andreessen and Horowitz. But this is a great moment in time to be focused on AI, but it being an individual investor. Whereas for me, perfect example is like I'm running workflows on Zapier. Like I'm trying to automate myself and trying to create leverage so that I have to hire a whole fleet of people to run a firm. I can do that myself, agentic sort of aided in that process.
Amazing. Like kind of eating your own dog food, right? In terms of the things that you're investing in, you're also doing yourself. That's super exciting. And then, talk to us about the ideology and the vision for the fund.
Sure. What I've learned in my practice really is to take the cues, I think, from Bogomil Balkansky to Gilly Ronan to Doug Leone, the Sequoia sort of model, which is the vast majority of the decision process to back a company all comes down to the founders. The quality and the caliber of the people that you are behind are the determining factor of whether the company thrives and ultimately as an investor whether you receive an outcome. So where I focus is meeting with and evaluating teams usually before they've written their first line of code. What I'm looking for is exceptional people.
So you're investing in the people, knowing that the company will come.
Yes, and there's a thread to it would be I want to know that for a company that I've invested in, those founders, the CEO in particular, needs to be a person who, in their lifetime, everything they touch, they've been exceptional at.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter that they founded a company before, but if they were an exceptional military officer, an exceptional athlete, an exceptional student, top of their class at Harvard, excellent. So I want to know that, because when that person starts that company, it gives me a confidence level that they're going to be an exceptionally effective leader.
Yeah.
They can adapt to the situation. That's important for a person who has a demonstrated track record of exceptional performance. They can read the room and they can understand when the market is telling them to move a different direction. Those are the most of the great companies that we see in cybersecurity today did not start out doing what they are doing today.
Yeah.
They evolved. They shifted. They pivoted. And that's a sign of intelligence when you can listen to the market.
And you can there's certain people that you sit across the table from, and you're like, if you told me that you're starting a peanut company,
absolutely,
I would put my money in. There's certain people that you meet, and it's funny because everyone else also wants to put the money in these people because they are just brilliant. But there is a certain amount of pizzazz when you sit across from someone, and it is hard to quantify. And there are a lot of great technologies that we'll never see because the founders don't have that. Right. They have these great ideas, these great use cases, but if the founders don't have the ability to pivot or take feedback or push through in harder times, because some people have never faced adversity either, and they get slapped in the face, and it's tough as a founder. So I think, there is that certain quality. So would you say right now, like, obviously I'm assuming that you're assessing a bunch of AI security companies, like, how are you weighing those scales in terms of, hey, I'm going to back you as a founder? Because the other thing I guess to think about is, by the time someone's written a pitch deck, there could be 10 other companies, or the industry's moving like that. The use case might have already changed. So are you assessing like some level of more founder than pitch deck in terms of the way that you're looking at companies right now?
I think the way I'm looking at companies is to look at automation, for example, like Zapier and Make and N8N, these like low code, no code automation. We can automate a lot of security processes. There's like SOC automation or access identity. And that automation layer of business process management is the place that's 5 minutes from now is going to change.
Yeah.
New ChatGPT comes out with a new update, the business process layer, all of a sudden they can do it cheaper, faster, easier. So what I'm looking for is AI infrastructure. Okay. I'm looking at companies that actually understand the mechanics of a deployment, let's say of an agentic mesh, in the infrastructure required for it.
Right.
Because those infrastructure components are where big companies will be built. And so I want to understand that the founding team, when they're thinking about product, yes, they're thinking about the end user and the security analyst, but they understand that it isn't probably about the Slack bot experience. Yes. It's actually about the infrastructure that they're riding on. And when they understand the infrastructure and kind of teach me, that's my educational hours. My CPEs are listening to smart people and AI talk about the infrastructure. And that's what I'm listening for. I'm listening for somebody who can describe to me why their technology, which is either protecting or composed of AI, is sticky. And that's important.
So is there a world where like just security officers and chief security officers could be learning in this moment? Because the way you're describing it is like, if these founders are going to show up and they're going to help, they're going to be on your radar, that means they're really getting into the infrastructure layer and they're helping solve like more of the primitive security problems at lower levels. I'm kind of curious if there's an opportunity for security leaders to start connecting with doing kind of what you're doing, getting their education from those who are thinking at a deeper level, because I see a lot of leaders in the security space, they're very much focused at the application. When you use the phrase like they're at the application layer, they're trying to figure out the Slackbot experience. They're trying to figure out, can I put the shim inside the browser to talk to my governance folks? And they have a huge disconnect from how the infrastructure, how these LLMs and how the agentic compute is actually going to work together. I'm just kind of curious if you have some thoughts around what could security leaders be doing to get better educated and like closer to the metal on this.
I think that the AI boomerang is a hyper accelerated version of what we've gone through several times, such as like cloud adoption, right? So in 2010, there's the slow movers and there's the early movers, and eventually, what really had to happen is the security teams had to develop basic proficiencies, and the leaders who eventually were trying to hold on to the past really became antiquated and less relevant, and so the evolution of the market went to CISOs and security teams who were more engineering savvy.
Yes.
And then now we're seeing that, I think, that same thing, which is the pace of change is creating the necessity for the security team and the security leadership to be highly proficient in AI technology as technologists. And there's going to be a very rapid division between the individual security practitioners who are masters of AI technologies and those who are not. And I think that that time frame is a very short window here, where security teams have to get religion that this is a competency area. Forget like a particular framework or technology. AI competency has to be a core fundamental sort of a first primitive skill set. And if it is not, those individual people and those individual companies are going to atrophy very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an interesting time as a security practitioner. And I think, look, there's plenty of people that are waiting for someone else to come and help them upskill. And those people are going to struggle, right? Because the truth is, by the time there's a certification, like there's no CISSP for AI right now. And by the time you'd finished it and finished that cert, probably irrelevant, because to your point, the second the next version is what you learn is probably obsolete. So I think that education journey is going to be interesting. I'd love to get your take on the CISO role as a whole, because there does seem a little bit of a exodus, not in a bad way, but you've got some great CISOs turned founder right now, because it's as easy to solve a problem as it's ever been, and you can go to market really quickly. Turning VC, or exiting the industry altogether, maybe to go to a CTO or a CIO gig. Do you think that that's a trend that's going to continue? Do you think a lot of great CISO seats, and obviously you're talking to these people right now, will be in CISO seats in 5 years? Or is there just a window where they're going to move into pastures new?
I feel like the last year is like a snow globe that got shaken. And kind of everybody is moving in different directions all at the same time. I think that you probably see this, and I've heard this from other folks in the executive search area, that like over half of the people in their current roles are looking for something else. And so I don't know. I think this is sort of like it's a period of explosive change. I can't wrap my head around why that would slow down.
And
I don't know. Because there's only foreseeable accelerants. There are no foreseeable decelerants.
And the CISO job's getting harder every day, right? Like there is every day that your head of HR is chucking stuff into ChatGPT, because people are now widely adopting this technology. I had a dinner with a nice Midwestern guy who literally sold cheese for a living last night, and he was talking to me about Black Hat. He was here for the Chili's conference. But he's using ChatGPT, and he's the VP of sales, and he's chucking all of the corporate information. So all of a sudden, the CISO's job, because the attack surface is monstrous, but the CISO's not getting paid more. Like the job is only getting harder. They're not getting the team. So I think there's going to be a lot of people looking to leave, and I think people are now starting to see that there's not, hey, I just got to go to another company. Like, what are my options? So it's exciting.
And I think there's also a personal observation that a majority probably of CISOs or senior executives started their career in IT. Some they were network, they were developers. Some come from compliance. Like I actually came from compliance, right? That was my area. But the vast majority of people come from IT and they come from security. But that probably has to reverse at some point. I think like a professional way to look at your next career move might be to go back to IT, go be an infrastructure leader, go be a services management organization leader, go be a project management office leader. Security people going back to IT doesn't seem to ever happen. And it's actually kind of mysterious why that doesn't happen, because IT is still a necessary, thriving capital investment for companies. And for some reason, I don't see security people going back. And I actually think that security people should be considering that right now, because there aren't more CISO jobs open. There are a heck of a lot of CTO and head of infrastructure. And those are roles that I do think that CISOs need to be thinking about.
And some good ones are making that jump. Or in great cases, you're seeing them own security under the CIO umbrella, because IT and security have one and the same goals, really. And the better you do IT, the less you need to spend on security.
That's a really interesting point because I was actually having a conversation this morning over breakfast with a handful of CISOs, and we were talking about where is the future of the CISO role going? And we kind of netted out in the conversation, well, this is going to be this striation where there will be the larger enterprises, you'll have a classic pure play chief security officer. But for a lot of the mid to lower market, well, the mid market who will have, you'll see the confluence of where you'll see security, IT, infrastructure coming under one role and they'll start to come together. So whether it's them stepping into a head of infrastructure and IT role where they're bringing a security domain, or the CISO role is getting other duties as assigned, and they're picking up these other departments along the way. We'll see that kind of in the mid-market. And then the lower market will just continue not to have a security leader at all. But we'll see that. It's kind of an interesting point, though, that there might be a lot of opportunities for people to take their 10 years of 15 years of security expertise where they've been in the middle of all these companies, touching all this technology and these business processes, and just actually taking those on as their day job, right? And bringing security as like the adjective, not the noun.
And then go back to the DevOps team, go back to the dev groups, go back to these services desk and lead those functions with us from a security reference point. That would be awesome. I mean, I've said this 100 times. The most consequential person to security in any organization is the head of DevOps. That person has the most consequence. What a miracle it would be if that person came from security and then became the head of DevOps. I think that would be an awesome move for the security industry, is if that role was staffed by somebody who is security trained.
Nice.
So
really good insight. When you're working with, you have this really interesting space now, this really interesting seat at the table where you're dealing with these earlier stage companies. How are you seeing, like, what are some of the things beyond what are some of the characteristics that would lead to them being really successful in gathering your attention? You've mentioned one of them, which is the exceptional. They have to say the founding group that's exceptional in something. Is there a technology play here, or is there a particular space that needs attention from startups that's maybe getting underserved, or somewhere you would, if you could speak to all the people who want to leave being a CISO and step in and say, hey, we're going to go solve these problems in security. Is there some place in the market you say this is getting underserved and really needs the time and attention of the next wave of security innovation?
Almost every conversation I have with a founder team at any early stage where we talk about the subject of competition, who are your competitors? And invariably, that founder team always starts rattling off a group of companies that was born in the same place and time that they were. It's all these small companies. They look at that's my competitors. No, they're not. Your competitors are listed on NASDAQ. Those are the ones that we should be. Those Cloudflare, F5, Akamai, Palo Alto, Microsoft. These are the major corporations that have the absolute vast majority of all of the security spending. So don't bother competing against the guy down the street with who also just got an A round. You're never going to see them in competition. You're going to see Microsoft every single time. And so I think that the founder mindset oftentimes is to look to their left and right and look at other founders and try to beat them. And that's a huge mistake. Go towards the major part of the market is these sort of anchor public companies. And so go find out what their customers are unsatisfied with. What is it about your current offering that's a gap, or you're unsatisfied? Go solve that problem and stop worrying about the little startup next to you and what they're building.
And do you think, as you looked at the problems that you're seeing, look, AI is obviously having its moment. I still think there's plenty of money for boring shit.
A perfect example right now is what business resiliency. That disaster recovery and backup is hot again. Well, disaster recovery and backup is not exactly new. It maybe isn't sexy,
dad did it.
but it's bad. But it's back again. It's like it's cool to be in the DR business again.
And I think AI is helping innovate some really boring stuff. Like email security is like a thing again. It's crazy. So I think there is a lot of money and opportunity for just getting really solid fundamental things right. And again, we're in an AI wave, like buzz crowd right now, but I think there is so much to be made in doing the fundamentals great. In terms of, the way that you're looking at potential target companies, do you think for you it's going to be those CISO turned founders, this community that you've built over the years? Is that something that you're targeting?
Oh, for a CISO-led startup? Probably not.
Okay.
And the reason is not because I don't believe CISOs are capable. It's that I know that I'm not capable. And what I mean by that is I don't have the motor to run 90 hours a week,
Yeah.
flying all over the world, nonstop, 365,
Yeah.
to be the kind of founder I think you need to be successful today.
Yeah.
I know that, like, I'm lazy. I'm not young and dumb enough.
I don't think anybody
to
would
take that
accuse
on.
you of being lazy.
No, but you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
there's almost like a mindset of the founder being like, I personally think that the best founder is the one who doesn't even know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
Right.
And they just put their head down and they just
Go.
they have drive to go do it. But I often wonder if repeat founders, I actually typically don't find repeat founders compelling.
Okay.
Or founders that maybe have already had multiple like corporate jobs, and you worked for a bank, you worked for a big public corporation. I kind of, you'd have to prove to me that you still have the amount of motor left.
Right.
So I really love the young energy of somebody who's just going to dive in head first, and this is their singular mission for the next 10 years is one thing, nothing else.
There is so much beauty in like naivety
Yes,
as well.
absolutely.
Like there is that like doe-eyed. I have people on my team, and I'm like, this is probably not going to work out because I'm old and cynical. I've been here.
Yep.
But bring that relentless energy where you don't know that, like, because you can just go and you don't turn it. So I think that's great.
It's the 27-year-old founder who's brilliant. They went to MIT or they went to whatever, and they walk up to the CISO at JP Morgan because they don't know any better.
Yeah.
You and I are scared to do that.
Yeah.
We're smart and we've been educated that that's not the way to do it. But that founder who just marches right up and is like, oh yeah, starts pitching. That's like a huge advantage.
Yeah.
It's a superpower to do that.
Yeah. And I think founder-led sales is the world that we're in today, right? There is this, and you've done a very good job, like from a branding perspective, like people are buying from the brand energy in the same way that you're investing in those people. We buy trust as when we're buying security products, or we're buying trust. And so that founder-led sales thing is so important. And yeah, like as we get older, we're weighed down by commitments, right? One of the only things that we continue to gain as we get older is commitments. You only get more and more commitments. So it is that advantage of being able to go 100 hours a week and not have to check in with others, etc. So it's great. So yeah, I think like I truly buy into it. And I also think like as an industry, the CISO community, we're not great with salespeople. We have like historically CISOs do treat a lot of vendors like shit. And so it is, I do take some glee when I see them on the other side, and I'm like, all right, like this is different. So and do you? I think like from when you're assessing, are you looking for maybe someone who's engineering but with a go-to-market feel to them? I think like it doesn't necessarily have to be a sales background, but if you meet a 27-year-old smart engineer, do they have to have something about them from a selling themselves perspective?
I don't actually think so.
Okay.
I think that I've had the privilege of working for a couple of founders, and Oz Golan from No Name, like a world-class engineer, not an extrovert, but he could be a very effective selling because he was knowledgeable, a little bit understated oftentimes, but that there's no one way of selling that's effective. Oz's way of selling was a cerebral versus those which are like hyperbolic, in your face. And so I have found that there are a lot of different, archetypes of people can be very effective founders, and which is why I think Oz is just a great example of somebody who is that rocket scientist and who maybe wouldn't test off the charts as a salesperson, but they were super effective because of their credibility and their motor to jump on the plane 365 days a year.
And to bring the right sales support around them as well, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Know what your limitations are. Lean into your strengths.
Yeah.
Don't pretend you're something you're not. Lean into your strengths. If you are an engineer, lean into that.
Yeah.
If you are an extrovert, lean into that.
That's a really good point. There's actually 3 dots I'd like to connect and get your perspective on that we've mentioned around in this conversation. First, you described like the moment in our market right now is as if someone took a snow globe and they just shook the hell out of it, and there's change happening all over the place. And Stu, you were talking about like these CISOs who have been operating, who are trying to like get into this headspace of like, am I going to be the one who brings the solution to market? And then you also said like, Stu, like we're buying trust, like we're really trying to get that thing of like when we want to buy a technology and bring it in. So I'm just kind of curious, with your experience, like being a field CISO multiple times now over, is there a role or a place in these new companies that are coming forward where they're saying, we're going to have these founders, these go-to-market teams, but we actually want a CISO to come in here because it helps us establish trust in the or credibility in the marketplace? I'm just curious your thoughts. Like, there's just these three component pieces here. If people are buying trust, we have these CISOs who are like looking for something new.
Yep.
And then you've been in that seat of being a field CISO multiple times now.
Yep.
Do we see more of that?
Yes, but I think you and I have talked about the union card. I have this union card analogy, which is I feel like when I was in financial services, I was a card carrying member of the CISO union.
Mm-hmm.
That was my trade craft.
Yeah.
I was certified, right? That was my profession.
Yeah.
Tradecraft was CISO.
Yeah.
And so when a security vendor wants to bring aboard a CISO, they really have a fork in the road decision to make about are you hiring that CISO to remain a card carrying member of the union,
Mm-hmm.
or are you hiring them to sell software? And you can't do both. You really can't be both at the same time, because if you bring aboard that CISO and you expect them to still maintain the trust of the CISO community and have access to it,
Yes.
then you cannot expect or ask that person to sell software. You have to sort of honor the tradecraft and the union. You get kicked out of the union.
Slack channels.
You get kicked out of the union
Yeah.
if you abuse the rules.
Yeah.
Right. And that's so I think that there continues to be a really nice influx of CISOs moving into vendors.
Yeah.
But there's that key question actually, I think, makes the majority of people I've talked to unsatisfied with the move,
Right.
because they think that they're going to remain a member of the union, and the expectation is that they carry a quota, or the expectation that they sell software, and then they lose their seat at the table.
Yeah.
And now they're neither. They're not a salesperson.
Yes.
They're not in the CISO community anymore. They're kind of in between. That's a tough place to be professionally.
And I do think people see some of the fun stuff, which is, you host events
Mm-hmm.
and you get to you travel, and they're like, okay, I think I could do that. But you're right. People, and I think we can loop this to founder as well, but people see the LinkedIn and the public stuff of what it is. But
Yep.
I know you were on the road a tremendous amount
Yeah.
in
Yep.
those days, and I know you are now. So let's talk about the field CISO
Sure.
role. Like, what are some of the greats? But let's talk about some of the ugly truths of
Sure.
what it really means to be a salesperson, because that's how it landed.
Well, I think the first thing is being in sales is hard.
Yes.
There's it's the time, it's the energy, and honestly, it's kind of emotional. Like, right,
Yes.
if you to be rejected
Yes.
constantly, like I'm not wired like
Yeah.
that way. Excellent salespeople get over that real quick. I'm not wired that way, and so there's a learning curve for me to sort of to be a kind of a passenger through the sales process and to see it from both sides now. That really kind of illuminated to me. I think for all the actors in the play, like, you could do this a little better. You could be more effective. You could be, most of the time, just be nicer.
Yep.
Or be direct. Just, hey, you don't have budget? Just tell me that in the first meeting.
Yep.
Cool. Like, we're good. Just
Yeah.
be direct, be polite, move on. And everybody would benefit by having just like a little bit of empathy for what the other person's doing.
Yes.
And we'd all just accelerate our throughput of decision making.
Yeah.
And so I think that the educational process for me is still ongoing, but I really valued that, seeing the full pipeline experience. So,
And there's definitely a wiring that comes with this. We have to just like honor what you said earlier about playing to your strengths. Like, if you're going to be the engineering founder, be the engineering founder. It's like my brother, I have two younger brothers, and one, Declan, he was built for sales. Like, that kid's got like a hide that's super thick. He doesn't remember the rejection 10 seconds after it's happened.
Yep.
But you reject me, boy, I sits and I think about it. I'm like, what could I have done better? And self-flagellation.
Yep.
He's like, I'm on to the next one. Let's go.
Yep.
And he's just like relentless. Right? And he is like kind of built for that classical sales. Yeah. Not me.
and there's other things that kind of stick out to me is I'm not built for sales, but I am built to be on camera. Like, I actually don't mind that.
Yeah.
Put a microphone in front of me. I can go on stage. I have no fear of public speaking, and there's other people that do.
Yeah.
I actually have the people that I respect tremendously professionally, but then I see them when they're put on the spot in an interview, or they on conference, and they're just a nervous wreck.
Right.
And so you just learn what you're good at,
Yeah.
and you learn your strengths, and just when
Double
someone's
down.
pretending to be something that they're not, it really shows. As a field CISO, you're always on display.
Yes.
And that is
Yeah.
so if you're always going to be scrutinized or on display, then just make sure you're lean into things you're good at. I am not a world-class engineer, which is exactly why you will never see me on LinkedIn posting engineering insights. That's not me. I could, I could ghost author something for
AI.
right. So
yeah, and I think that's another thing to think about is like I'll use like RSA or Black Hat as an example, right? You are signing a contract with the world that you are seen and you're an extension of whatever that business you are because you deliberately have to build a brand and be a salesperson. So every interaction you have, whether it's 7 o'clock at breakfast or midnight at a hotel bar, you are always on. And that's a big burden to carry that some people like the CISO of a manufacturing company in the Midwest can kind of within reason do what they want after 5 o'clock. So it's very different.
yeah, but that comes with the upside.
Yes, of course.
Okay, yes, but I get stock, right? And I
Pressure's a privilege.
I compensated handsomely. That's wonderful. But there's an higher compensations, higher expectation.
Yeah.
And I do remember a moment very early at No Name where the advanced warning on a trip was 6 hours, and it was you got to be at breakfast tomorrow morning in Salt Lake City.
I remember talking to you about
That's
that.
it. Just you go.
Yep.
It's all right. The next day it's Cleveland, and this has to happen. You do it. So you have to be responsive, and you have to be ready, and kind of bring your A game. And that's the game of being a field CISO. Be ready. So.
Yeah. And do you think people similarly? Do you think people are seeing this glorification of we talked about the founders and how much work it is? It feels like there's a few CISOs who think I can do that. And I think the founder role has been glorified because it is a pretty hard road. You're speaking to them all the time, but do you think people on the CISO seat, maybe I guess like thinking it's a lot easier than it actually is?
Absolutely. A great example would be when I joined No Name. I was the first hire in the company whose only job was security. Yep. There was DevOps teams and R&D teams, but I was the first person whose job was. And so there was an assumption that I could on day one provision and deprovision access for the other new employees. Nope, I haven't administered access for a very long time. And so what you realize very quickly is that there is no pride of like you got to sweep the floor and integrate applications into SSO, onboard, offboard employees, and also do customer meetings. And so I think that what is undervalued moving to a startup is the fact that you actually have to do everything in security and also the field job. And so perhaps somebody who has been in a corporate role for a very long time might really think about that real hard. Are they okay with, actually being the only person on call?
Yeah.
This month for an incident and checking in checking the CrowdStrike alerts come to your phone.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for that again.
Yeah. And it's a lot of bullshit work.
And you and I worked on hiring Mike Morado, who is now CISO. I desperately needed Mike because I was not, and Mike will chuckle at this, I was not competent enough to do all of this stuff anymore because I haven't done it for forever. And I don't know that some of that I ever could do, but I was never an AppSec person by trade. You need to have that right-hand person.
Yes.
So if a person's seriously considering moving from a corporate job to a vendor job or a field CISO job, if you don't have that person next to you who's better than you, don't take it. Like find that person and bring them with you. So
or set the expectation before you join that you're going to do this hiring, because there is this expectation that like, oh, if we get the CISO, then everything will be fine. It's like, well, no, actually, you need a team. You need this particular skill set. So getting that at least the expectation set up front.
And I do think a lot of these companies with the boom of AI think, hey, if we just put one person and a bunch of agents, everything's going to be good. We're nowhere near that yet.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, I think the best thing that we can sort of assume right now is that we're making incremental improvements on like human assisted processes. Yeah. Like, okay, I can offboard an employee faster, or I can build a report that used to take me 3 hours. I can build it now in 10 minutes. Great. Incremental improvements are wonderful, but we're not really changing the nature of the organization. We probably aren't making any staffing decisions. I'd be highly skeptical of anybody who says they cut staff because of AI automation. Really.
Again, we talked about this on an earlier podcast. I think a lot of the cuts because of AI is really just for Wall Street. It's actually not doing anything, and businesses, public companies like to do layoffs because it's very attractive to shareholders. It doesn't feel like we're actually changing teams because AI is more efficient. And the other thing is, it feels like we're playing whack-a-mole with problems. We're using AI to fix something else, and then it brings another layer of governance or responsibility. So it's not like we're fixing one thing and creating other problems, which needs more spending, more resource, more products, more tools. So it's a fun game of whack-a-mole. But the headcount, and I see this daily, it feels like the market, maybe less so for leadership as we talk about, but the good practitioners, the jobs are there now, and the door is knocking, which is good, I think.
Amazing. And there's a new stack, right?
Yep.
AI. We're adding tools faster than we're removing them.
Yes.
That's not changing.
Yep.
That's only going to increase for, I think.
And you look at some of the events. Like I always look at how the state of the security industry and how easy it is to get a free drink and dinner at Black Hat, and there are plenty of events happening this week, which is great.
Well, Connor and I are hosting free breakfast tomorrow morning.
Yes, we are.
It's a plug for our
Yeah, I mean, because what I love about this, though, is we have a moment here at Black Hat where we can bring in 150 CISOs in a room and we can start talking about like what is meaningful to them right now. And what I love, I think is like kind of one of the exciting intellectual challenges is that when you ask the CISO like what's important to you, you could ask 10 CISOs and you get like 12 different answers.
Yep.
Because, and you're like, oh, we thought we were all converging on one problem. And you're like, nope, every organization has like a slightly different maturity curve and a different expression of these technologies and such. So yeah, it's very much as a go.
And can I add too? Yes, me 10 days in a row, I'll give you 10 different answers.
Yeah.
I do believe that was absolutely the case. And I look back at when I was a buyer, particularly when I was at City National Bank, I remember conversations with salespeople that I actually like, I can't believe I said that, because I know that was true that day, but it definitely wasn't true like the next day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the day they got me, I either had a bad day or had an audit finding or like something. I came from a meeting that didn't go well, whatever the case is. I change my own mind all the time, let alone expect that there's like some sort of consensus of CISO sentiment. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, if we look at the conversations, how they've evolved, we were together 3 months ago at RSA, and the conversations and the companies have spun up, and companies that were around one Black Cat ago getting acquired for $1 billion. Like it's amazing and fascinating. Like we've never seen this rapid pace of change. But that comes with challenges.
As the situation changes with like mergers and acquisitions and valuations, and I hear a lot of like discussion at a conference like this about how crazy it is or how like irrational it is or how fast it is. But like there is no chance that this does not
Continue.
look in retrospect like just the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially when you look at the top end of the technology curve of the Microsofts and NVIDIAs and OpenAIs and the extraordinary amount of capital that they have on hand and will continue to generate, that will continue to fuel AI infrastructure for at least forever.
Yes.
Trillions and
10
trillions of
years,
dollars. As long as that capital investment is going in, there is absolutely no doubt that the security control set will continue to be another, and almost like a child of investment of all that capital.
It's a secondary implication of it. Yeah.
Whatever valuations we think are a lot now, just wait. I do think that's true because we're only getting into an area where there's more and more investment. It's going to go faster. It's going to keep going faster.
It's just easy to buy now, isn't it? And people, there's a lot of almost like acqui-hiring as well. Like they're just like, okay, these are great minds. They're foundation of a problem. We could fix this ourselves, or we could just chuck 500 million at them and over they come. Awesome. I hope you land a bunch of them.
Yeah. Well, we just maybe have to start thinking about things like, hey, gas used to be cheaper in the 1950s. Yeah, it did. And guess what? Technology used to be cheaper in the 1990s. Prices are different. Things are changing fast, and I think we'll have to recalibrate ourselves, like as a CISO, what
is $1 billion?
So one thing I'd love your perspective on, like when you're working tomorrow morning, I got breakfast, 150 CISOs, and then you actually have this incredible community you've built and the mentorship that you've done. What is some of the advice that you're giving CISOs today when they ask you like, hey, Karl, like how do I be great at my job? How do I stay ahead? How do I look into the roadmap for the next 18 months? How does a CISO stay good and be really good? Because as you mentioned, things are getting faster. They're changing really quickly. What are you sharing with CISOs to help them win in all of this change?
I think the first thing is to immediately make the contrarian decision to show up in person. Go to the conferences, go back to going to your ISACA chapter event locally. Go back to going to your InfraGard meeting. Go back to going to RSA and Black Hat, because I think that it is so much more necessary today than it has ever been to be educated and up to speed on your profession. If any of us have been sitting at home for 6 months and haven't been to a professional conference and listened to extremely smart people talk about security or careers, we're falling behind. And so I think that the irony of the AI era is you have to go back to in person. To some degree, that's necessary. And I think that work from home almost spoiled us. It's not served a lot of people well in that sense. So I do go back to the conferences. First thing. And then the other thing is that the whole idea of like leaning into your strengths. I do think, and I started a firm and a VC fund, but I have a finance degree and an MBA. This is actually my strength area. This is what I actually kind of intended to do when I got out of the Army. I was trained to be along this pathway. And so for me, I'm kind of returning to a place that I actually feel professionally comfortable. And so I think that the CISO thinking about things like, oh, I want to be an investor, or I want to be this, or I want to be that. Is that your strength area?
Right.
Because honestly, like for me to go, that's like me being a developer. Like that's ridiculous. I will be ill-equipped to go back and learn how to code.
But a cap table makes you read it like a book.
So lean into your strengths, and you don't have to be everything to all people. And
but that takes guts. Like that takes a real like commitment. I don't know. There is a part of you which says like, if this is my strength and I'm going to be all about it, you end up saying no to everything else. I mean, to say yes is to say no. And so I just like have that fortitude. I think is what I was looking for, to say. So you just said, this is where my strengths are. I'm going to go all in on this.
But how many memorable people in history were great at everything? Most of the people we remember in history, the great athletes, the great leaders, the great artists, right? They were great at one thing. And so I think that resonates, right? There's not many people, there's people that you find that won't go down in history that are pretty good at everything, but the people that you remember that were great were normally great at one thing, and they're remembered for one thing.
Well, then that's, I almost kick myself now. This is the part, well, I will share the story about.
Oh, please, yeah.
There's a moment that I decided to do this, and it was at RSA 2 years ago. And CEO of a company called Dope Security, Kunal, came up to me at a bar, and he's like, Karl, like, No Name got acquired. Like the announcement was that day. Like that day was the announcement. And Kunal came up to me. He's like, so you're starting a VC fund, right? I'm like, no, I've done some angel investing, and like, no. And he got in my face. He's like, no. It's like, this is the job you need to do. Like, this is your skills are these things. Go start a fund, quit your job, go do it today. I'll invest. And he kind of punked me into it. And so that kind of resonated with me. And so for about the next like 60 to 90 days or so, I was thinking about that. And it always like kind of he got under my skin.
Okay.
Because he called me out for not being true to the strengths that I have.
Right.
And I needed that, and I value that. And so he was like the first person I called to tell them I opened the fund, because like he got under my skin in the right way, because he really prompted me.
Right.
He prompted me to get the motivation that I had to make that move finally. And so and that I think that for me just it sealed the deal. I might have been trending that way anyways, but Kunal pushed me off the cliff.
And it's amazing because he probably looks back and was like, that was a nonsensical conversation to him.
It was the most obvious thing in the world. Like,
and sometimes people in our journeys don't realize quite the impact they've made. So that's awesome. And you guys will always have that story. But sometimes you do need to like, hey dude, what are you doing? And I had a similar moment at my previous company, and they were like, is this your company? And I was like, no. They were like, okay, why don't you start one? Like, you should have your own firm. And same thing.
Someday, this exact conversation, I had the opportunity to be Kunal yesterday. And there's a person that I actually kind of got on yesterday for not starting a fund.
Interesting.
So a year from now, I hope I can share that name.
Love it.
That's amazing. So it is great when you have people in your world and in your sphere that you can trust and listen to. And both those have to happen at the same time. And then they're willing to be honest with you. So with that, Karl, I think we'll call that a day. Karl, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been phenomenal. It's so great to see you go from like Army to running security programs to being the field CISO of multiple organizations. And now you've got your own fund where you're truly leaning into your strengths, as you would say, and going all in on that. So again,
love to see it.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you.